Hello and welcome to the results stream for round 5 of the 2026 SpaceChem tournament Euclid's Elements. In this level, you are given antimony, which is element 51, and carbon, and have to create a compass out of that and a straight edge. The compass has an iron hinge and an iron tip, as well as bronze arms and a carbon tip, so maybe like graphite or something. Even though going with the theme of this level should probably 2 iron tips, the way it was in ancient Greek times. Yeah, but this was just easier to create and made for a more doable level. And yeah, the straight edge just consists of 4 carbons, which is relatively easy to create. And yeah, the antimony right here is provided because I had some particular nuclear things in mind that you should do to create this compass, and almost all players found that. So yeah, you have 2 fusion lasers, 2 fission lasers, 8 bonders, 2 quantum tunnels, and 1 sensor. The metric was essentially cycles times symbols, and symbols had a little extra penalty for grab drops as usual. I think that is everything that I have to say about the level itself. So we can start having a look at the solutions now. The first one is by May, called It Works, okay? Okay, so what does this solution do? First of all, prime some flip-flops. Yeah, as Brokios already points out by the page count, we did not have quite as many submissions this week as usually, which might be an indication that this level was less approachable or just harder looking. Or maybe people just had other priorities right now. I didn't get any feedback from people who did not participate why that is the case. So, first of all, antimony is 51, and May is fusing that into carbon to get lanthanum, and then splitting that into copper and nickel. And then he bonds nickel to carbon and to the copper. Now red is going on this loop, creating a stick of 4 carbons. But not with the goal of outputting a straight edge, but instead with the goal of fusing all of that into the nickel to create tellurium, splitting that into iron and another iron. So now there's copper and iron, and yeah, there are 2 irons, 2 coppers, and 2 tins, so tin is still missing. So blue just holds onto one of the iron atoms, and red goes on its loop, creating another 4 stick of carbons. So that is 24 atomic mass right here. Fusing that into this iron to get tin. So now there's copper, tin, and iron right here. And the whole loop starts again. Just instead of attaching carbon right here, the iron gets attached instead. Then that fuses into the nickel again to create 2 irons. And blue bonds that iron over there, while red creates another stick of 4 carbons with the goal of fusing that into this iron to create the missing, what is it? Tin, right? Yeah. And now there are 2 irons, 2 coppers, 2 tins, and 1 carbon. And that is what you need to create a compass. Gets bonded, and even though the shape isn't quite right, it's still acceptable. Might just be open differently than this compass. And it's just sitting there. Meanwhile, red builds a 5th stick of carbons, which is now actually our straight edge. And it just moves that to the output zone using this 5 counter with the 4 flip-flops down there. And then it outputs both of it.
How does this even work? Carbon and antimony have a very large lowest common multiple.
So this uses 4 sticks of 4 carbon each. That's 16 times 6, so 96, I think. Yeah. 96, and this one is 51. Yeah, I'm honestly not quite sure. So as you might have noticed, this is not the intended way how you were supposed to create these atoms. And
Oh, right. No, it's correct. Because anime just inputs 17 more carbon atoms than usual.
oh yes, there's one extra. So 17 times 6 is 102, and antimony is 51, which is 2 times. So 2 antimonies are equal to 17 carbons. So yeah, that explains it.
So I guess this approach is quite natural if you have a defined circuit that builds a carbon stick, because you can then reuse it to build parts of the top output.
Yes.
I would imagine this would lead to a concise symbol solution.
Yeah, this one is using 89 symbols, and we can later see how that compares to the other solutions. Yeah, the tricky thing about this was that you were supposed to simultaneously optimize for symbols and cycles, and it is usually not obvious what that even means. And you might have to try out different trade-offs between symbols and cycles and see what works out best.
Well, here you don't, but that's a spoiler alert. More on that later.
Yeah, and for the pathing of the Walders, mostly blue is doing things here, and red is assisting a little bit in the beginning. And then red is actually mostly building its stick of carbons all the time.
Yeah, I think some time is lost on the stalls where red builds another carbon stick and blue does nothing.
Yeah. So this is more of a symbols optimized solve than a cycles optimized one. Yeah.
Well, maybe with due respect, this is more real time to solve than anything. I mean, the metric.
Yeah, might also be real time to solve. Yeah, but it's not very unoptimized, like with symbols. Like when I do a just complete real time optimization, then that usually looks less nice than this. So this is definitely a little bit symbol optimized, I would say. So yeah, let's run this to completion. And we can see that it takes around 28,000 cycles and 89 symbols. And yeah, we will need to see the next solution to have any kind of reference how good that is. And the next solution is Rex kicks the question: can Red's arrow at D2 be moved down to D4 to make it slightly faster? No. Why not?
I think there's a timing issue.
Yeah. So the
Maybe you
goes...
can maybe you can speed it up by 2 cycles in the loop.
So red is carrying this first carbon, which then gets grabbed by blue, so they are timed to work together.
Oh yeah, there can be no improvement in cycles here.
Yeah. So yeah, no low-hanging optimization like that. Rookie is wondering if blue sync could be moved to J5. So this sync right here, redirect down on J4. Save 2 symbols. And so basically something like this. But then...
No, now it hits sync twice. I think this is possible, but far from trivial.
You would save on 1 arrow and 1 sync this way, that's correct, but you would need to retime everything, so yeah. Might be possible, but nothing to do right now on stream. So next we already have our host solution, which was made before we had any idea what the metric should even be, and at a time where I considered not allowing flip-flops in this level, so the solution does not use any flip-flops. And yeah, let's just have a look at what it does. So first antimony is getting split into iron and manganese. Meanwhile, blue is splitting 1 carbon into 2 lithiums. Then red runs through its loop again, splitting another antimony, creating these 2 ions right here and fusing the 2 manganeses into tin. So now there's tin and 2 ions, and to get tin, copper, and iron from that, you only need to fuse lithium into one of the 2 ions right here, and then you already have almost half a compass. Also, this gets reshuffled right here. And then blue's sitting on that sink, and red runs through its loop again, creating another such stick with the lithium that is sitting on the fuser now. And yeah, it goes through all of these rotates, which don't do anything without the assistance of blue. Then blue bonds this together. Now it makes use of the sensor here again by having blue have tin on top of that and actually iron, which red detects, and red now inputs a lot of carbon and blue bonds that. And then, yeah, red grabs this thing again, detaches the straight edge from the compass, and the compass is actually in the exactly correct shape. And then it repeats. So this was the intended thing to do. You were supposed to split each antimony into iron and manganese, fuse all the manganese directly into tin, and then use lithium, which you get from splitting carbon, to turn iron into copper. Yeah, this is just trying to get it to work without flip-flops and yeah, the rotates on red. Let's have a look at that again. So right here, red needs to shuffle this iron from the right side to the left side. So it goes through all of these rotates, and blue hits bond minus and bond plus for it.
We have a bit of a head and brain type structure.
Yeah, and then the second time red goes through it, it also rotates but doesn't do anything.
If you had flip-flops here, then you could simply select between two different paths.
Okay, so let's run this to completion. And yeah, it's almost twice as fast, but uses a few more symbols. But overall, still is better than the previous solution by quite a bit due to being almost twice as fast. Okay, now we can get back to the scoring solutions. And the next one is by Zabokar, Broken Straight Edge version 2. Now we have flip-flops again. And what does the solution do? So red is spending a lot of time going around not doing anything. Now it finally starts. So it splits up there, goes over the fuse, but there's no lithium there yet.
Even large latency, even if your latency is quite large, your solution can be competitive because there are 100 outputs to do.
Yeah, this is a lot more about throughput and symbols, and you can sacrifice latency to save symbols.
So if you can start at another point of your loop to save on flip-flop setups, then it's worth it. Oftentimes,
yeah.
Because most of the solution for this puzzle will fall between 70 and 100 symbols. So at worst, you lose like 1, maybe 1.5% of your metric score. I mean, you can save 1 to 1.5% of your metric score by shaving a symbol, which is quite a bit better than which beats out the cycles lost from the latency, oftentimes.
So if your solution would take around maybe 10,000 cycles, then one symbol would be worth like maybe 100 cycles or something like that, roughly. But it obviously depends on how many symbols and cycles you actually have. So the second thing right here was also an iron, but this time blue was here with the lithium, so it got fused and is copper, and then blue also hits the swap while red is on top of it, swapping the copper out of the way and not bonding it to the iron. And then the third time, red just collects the remaining atoms here and fuses them into tin. Meanwhile, blue creates the stick with the help of this bond right here and already rotates it to put it right here. Red already brings the next ion. Now this time, red comes here. Oh no, it always comes there. Yeah, it alternates between going up here and down here, of course. Then it creates copper, which this time does not get swapped out of the way because the flip-flop now leads to a different location. The manganeses get fused together, and it's actually building the compass in the correct shape. Now all that's missing is one carbon. So here's 5 of them. One of them gets cut off and attached there. That is the compass, and the straight edge is already done. So yeah, it alternates between going up here and creating either iron or copper, and going here and getting this manganese.
I think so far, every solution but one has been using the B2 square as a split target. There are reasons to believe that it's not quite optimal, because it immediately produces two disconnected atoms in a position that's far away from everything else. We will see later what other contestants do about that.
So yeah, the general setup here is red is mostly going through the same loop up here, creating the individual atoms, and blue just is the smart Waldo, stepping in at times, helping out in some way, like moving this one copper around and providing the lithium at the right time. And then when this is done, red comes down here and creates the stick of carbons with the help of blue going down here as well. So yeah, this one is at 12,500 cycles and 71 symbols. So compared to the previous one, it is faster by about 1/6 and has a lot fewer symbols. So that's definitely another decent step down in the metric score. And yeah, it's definitely beneficial to have some flip-flops and plan ahead and know what the metric is. Okay, so let's have a look at the next solution, which is by Big Mango Head, unnamed solution version 22. This one is looking rather complicated compared to the last. And it also has 89 and 98 symbols. So what's happening here? First of all, there's a stick of 4 antimonies being built. And then it splits 2 of them immediately right here. The red Waldo shuffles around the manganese and fuses them into tin. That gets handed over to blue and attached at the bottom. And then the top 2 atoms get split and red handles the manganese again. Meanwhile, blue is already building a stick of carbons with the assistance of red right here. Then the swapper is actually used here to do this. So now it's iron, tin, iron, 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 tin, carbon. So to turn this into a compass, all that needs to happen is fusing lithium into this iron and this iron. And that happens right here and also up there. And now this is a compass. And red is already starting with the next inputs. So this is definitely a more cycles optimized solution. And it is usually carrying around these large sticks rather than individual atoms, and it's not splitting individual atoms up there in the corner. So it's generally handling things in a more efficient way to be more cycles optimized. But there's also a lot of first pathing going on with all of these flip-flops and the sensor up here.
It's beneficial if your atoms are arranged in a vertical stick, because vertical movement shuffles atoms along the tiles, and it means that atoms that you need can arrive at the features you need, like fusion and fission lasers, more readily than they would if you had other arrangements of them in the molecule. Okay, I should stop talking.
That's good.
I'm clearly struggling to formulate my thoughts today.
I'm always like that. Yeah, so the pathing is quite a mess, but what it's doing is pretty clever. Yeah, I also don't really know what to say about this.
It's extremely fast at what was it?
Yeah.
Is it 64 or 63 cycles per loop?
So it's 6410 in total. We can put in a pause right here. So 100, 164. So it's 64 cycle loop. And then only 10 latency on top of that.
I suspect it's because when blue drops the output at H3, there isn't quite enough symbol space for an output command.
Yeah.
It only happens way later. at C2.
So from the start, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cycles until the output. And that's exactly the 10 extra cycles we see in the score.
Sorry, the drop is on H1, not H3.
Yeah. Okay. So compared to the previous solution, it's about twice as fast and only uses 27 more symbols. So around a third more symbols, but half the cycles, roughly. So it's definitely still significantly better than the previous solution. Okay, so can move on to Team Absolute Zero's solution, which is 2-stick. Antimony first version 4. And this looks a little bit similar, but just simpler without all of these flip-flops everywhere. And it is also building a stick of 4 antimonies right here, but it already starts by splitting 1 carbon into the 2 lithiums. This time the splitters are a little bit apart and not directly on top of each other, which also means that the stick only needs to be moved up and down by 1 to access these positions instead of 2, and that the outputs are a little bit more separated, so maybe more accessible or something. I'm not quite sure. And then the manganese does not get paired up the first 2 and then the next 2, but instead the bottom 2 and the top 2 like that. And they get bonded together.
Well, the purpose is that this exact structure is possible. If you had fusion lasers right next to each other, then it wouldn't be possible to build such sticks.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the 2 lithiums got fused into here to create this copper iron stick.
But maybe it's not a cause. It's just yeah, correlation does not mean causation, something like that.
So now blue is building a straight edge right here, and the bond also gets used to bond this right here, so the manganese to the copper, and also bonds those 2 manganese to this copper, and it's shuffling all of these molecules right next to each other, then fusing the manganese into tin. Now it's iron copper tin, bonding another carbon over there, which is just conveniently already in the right position, and then just shuffling over this 1 iron, and that is a complete compass right there, even if it's a little bent. So let's just have a look how close all of these things move next to each other. Really cool how that just fits together.
There seems to be a bit of tempo loss because blue goes all the way onto the J file.
Yeah, blue is wasting a little bit of time here. And then
because of that, the next carbon atom, which has to be handled before the antimony sticks, arrives later.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm not the designer of the solution, so Team Absolute Zero could maybe share more insights on why do it like that.
Also, I don't know if we've mentioned it, this stream, Team Absolute Zero, is Rex Kicks, Gigi Gol, and Zarkyle.
We have Rex Kicks in chat, so maybe.
So Rex Kicks, do you know why blue is moving all the way to the right here? Okay, it's all Gigi Gol's work. So we will have to ask Gigi Gol about that one. Now, we couldn't figure out how to get blue to help more without spending more symbols. Okay, we had a faster solution, but it was 4 more symbols, and that was not worth it. Okay, let's also have a look at 52 and 108. That's a difference of 56. Is that correct? 108 plus 56 should be 164. Yes. So this is running on a 56 cycle loop, compared to the 64 cycle. So it's 8 cycles faster per output. And I did not run it to completion yet. That makes it 56,009 cycles at 89 symbols. Yeah, so compared to the previous one, it is still quite a bit faster and also a fair number of symbols lower. So it's better in both regards. Really nice. And with that, we already get to the number 2 solution by alliterative allies. It is called Crooked and Straight. And alliterative allies is the team consisting of Tough Thought and Britboy. So this solution starts by building a stick of 4 antimonies and having 2 fission lasers, one apart like that. We've seen that before. This time it takes the 2 manganese and fuses them together, while blue is just kind of down here wasting time. And then red splits again and fuses the manganese.
There seems to be a lot of single-threaded shuffling by red, because the fission products are single atoms. But maybe it just has to be done so that there is symbol space in that area for blue for later.
Yeah. Blue is carrying a single carbon, splitting that into 2 lithiums. that gets bonded like that. It's an interesting shape. Then one ion gets moved down by one, so that is also something we've seen before, like one of the ions getting moved over by one place. And then, yeah, only these lithiums need to get fused into those ions, and this carbon here also gets attached, and then we have our compass. Meanwhile, red is building a straight edge, and I just missed the fusion right there. So let's have a look again. Red builds this stick, and blue takes the straight edge that was just sitting there on the left side and brings it to the output zone. So now the fusion happens here, and that is the output. Yeah, and yeah, this is quite a bit of latency for the straight edge, which is just sitting there. But we also established that this puzzle is not that much about latency. It's mostly about symbols and throughput. So you can get away with this and still get a second place.
Unfortunately, you cannot hit output right away, like on H8, because there are single atoms in the output area at the time.
Yeah. Ida Vici. Yeah, both of the Waldos are running over things while you would want to output that they run over multiple times, and they also run over that when there's a single atom sitting there. So the output needs to happen later, unfortunately, unless you want to have extra symbols. But this is also quite symbol optimized, so you probably do not want extra symbols just to output a few cycles earlier.
And well, an improvement in one cycle worth of loop time is worth more than a symbol, as long as symbol count is lower than 100, because 100 is the output count. And an improvement is in latency would probably improve it by less than one full loop, so it can never be worth it to sacrifice symbols for latency. Unless you have some unless you have extreme amounts of latency, like latency that could arise if you extrude or build an input chain, like if you have persistent atoms. But in that case, the latency would be rather structural. It wouldn't be possible to remove it.
Also interesting that the sensor right here is only used to time the blue Waldo. So basically as a kind of sync, not really to split any pathing at all. Yeah, also this solution doesn't use any quantum tunnels, but many solutions actually don't use the quantum tunnels. This level does not really need quantum tunnels. It was just a nice addition because we haven't had many quantum tunnels this tournament. And yeah, a few people did make use of them, so why not have them?
Well, I for sure can say that quantum tunnels reduce real time to solve. Because if you're building a solution and then you see that your compass structure is slightly wrong, then you can maybe consider using swappers to correct it.
But the problem with swappers is also that they can't be on the same place as another glyph, like a bonder or something, so you still need to carry an individual atom from the swapper to a bonder or fusion glyph or something. So that is oftentimes a problem. That doesn't really make it worth it if your solution is good enough to not really need quantum tunnels.
Well, another case for quantum tunnels is long range transport. Say if you had to transport a single carbon atom at the end to attach to the almost built compass, then it would be natural.
Yeah, that is one of the legitimate cases to use it. Okay. This solution is slightly slower than the previous one by around 300 to 400 cycles. But from 89 down to 79 symbols, that is basically from 90 to 80, so 1/9 of the symbols. And cycles is less than 1/9 of difference. So that is why it is slightly better than the previous solution by being a little bit more symbol optimized. So yeah, we've seen the cycles getting optimized by Team Absolute Zero. And then we've seen the symbols getting optimized a little bit to get to second place. And now you people in chat, what do you think is the top 1 solutions? Do we lower the symbols or do we lower the cycles? RexKix is saying symbols, Tough Thought is saying both. And RexKix now also says both. Okay, so let's have a look at how we can lower both symbols and cycles, because if your metric wants you to optimize symbols and cycles, then just make the best symbols and best cycles solution and you get that. And we have Kuwakwe, mostly Bruchius with some help from Davichi. A cut below, copy, 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 I don't know how many copies. Look at this clean solution. Only 58 symbols. And yeah, it is not building a stick right here, but instead going through a little loop that creates iron right here, manganese right there. Again, bonds the iron, fuses the manganese into tin, and just drops it there. Then it does that again. Iron, fuse manganese into tin, and now there's this shape with 4 irons and 2 tins. The sensors detect that the iron is down there. Attach 1 more carbon. Actually make use of the quantum tunnel to cut off 1 iron down here, which is not needed there, and already move it across the reactor. And I pressed the wrong button. Let's watch that again.
So observe that this is the perfect shape. This is more or less the only shape that permits attaching the last carbon to the compass like that. If it were any other shape, then it would cost more bonders or bonders in different arrangement.
So while red is just moving this to the side and blue is also moving to the right side, yeah, why not build a straight edge right here? Actually, make it 5 carbons. Red is carrying this iron up there and attaches it there. Meanwhile, blue rotates here and red hits a split for it to get the 2 lithiums. Use the lithium into iron there to get copper and already drop the straight edge in the output zone without even entering this with blue. And then, yeah, blue just moves the other lithium down, uses it into there and output, and that is the compass, the straight edge, everything done. Cycle 51, by the way, and then a few more cycles to get back to the start. And yeah, 54 cycles and we're back to the start.
So this solution shows the idea that if your rollers are connected, I mean kept close together, then they can accomplish more than they could do if they were positioned far away from each other. So this is like the perfect spacing. First, we do all we need to do in the input area with the split fuse circuit. Then we go to the bottom to fetch all the carbons. Then we do some post-processing to get the atoms in the compass complete.
Yeah, and this is another time that Brookie just made a solution on the last day by pulling an all-nighter until 6 a.m. and making a top solution. And this time actually by far the best solution with that. Well, it's not recorded forever.
It's recorded file error.
Yeah, so Brookie said, I hope you like your compass bent into a snail shell. Yeah. So that's the output shape that we're getting here. This right here is the hinge, and one of the legs is somewhat straight and the other one is really bent. At least the straight edge is still straight. I don't think anyone submitted a non-straight straight edge. So at least we have that. Really? Want to see that again? How is it?
It even says it in the name.
Oh yeah. An L shape right there. Broken straight edge. Yeah, I already forgot about that. So let's run this to completion. It's at 52,097 cycles, so it's our fastest solution, and 58 symbols, so the lowest symbol solution. And yeah, that is how you optimize for symbols and cycles at the same time. I don't know how you can.
No, for the product. No, for the product.
Yeah, for the product by just optimizing for both things. So Brookie says TLDR optimize for cycles and then optimize the heck out of the symbol count. Yeah. Really impressive. Congratulations on getting first place.
Well, the main attraction here is the split fuse circuits in the beginning. because it's a very concise way to build almost everything that you need for the top output without consuming too much symbols. And it's quite fast at that. It's like 8 cycles per half for the input.
Yeah, and also this shape just turns out to be pretty convenient with having the 3 ions in a row right here, which then become this copper iron copper thing. Yeah, the loop.
Oh, is it 4 runs?
Yeah, the loop runs
It-
4 times. One for each of the ions.
Okay, I see.
So once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. So that's already 32 out of 53 cycles. Yeah, this is running on
Thank you.
53
Thank you
cycles.
for not being one of those crazy people who say it thrice.
I would have said it, but then I would have also have to say thrice, thrice, or whatever you call that. And that would have been really weird, so 3 times and 4 times it is. So yeah, great solution. Have a look at the fun solutions, and there are no real fun solutions except for our host single Waldo solution, which is this right here.
Well, more like yellow bunnies.
Yeah, this took me like 3 hours, I think, yesterday to make. Was pretty complicated. So carbon gets split into 2 lithiums. Lithium gets dropped onto the fusion right here. Now this loop up here creates iron and puts the manganese up there.
So in a way, you could say this is Brookio's split fuse circuit, only implemented with a single Waldo.
Yeah. Split again, fuse the manganese into tin, get the other iron, but because of this flip-flop, it now goes down here, fuses to lithium to copper. And now the ion sensor detects that to go up there and grab the tin.
I think instead of doing that, you could just always go to the bottom on B3. Can't you?
Always. But if we always go down there, then it creates copper first and then iron.
No, there's no second lithium to fuse into.
Yeah, but the first iron would already fuse, but the second needs to fuse. We can see it the next time. Then it detects the tin to go realize that the 3 stick here is done, grabs the other end, and then does some reshuffling to attach the iron to the top instead of the bottom, which, given the space constraints, looks a bit weird. And drops this all the way in the corner. Now it grabs the lithium and puts it onto the fusion laser. And here the flip-flop is necessary.
So here's another use for a quantum tunnel. Since a quantum tunnel lets you move an atom ahead of your path, so you're not holding into anything while traversing it.
Yeah, it's important to get this lithium across from here to there without hitting the split, and no matter how you arrange this, you basically always run into the split, which you need to hit with the carbon, and you don't want to split the lithium, so swapping it ahead is the easiest solution within the space. And yeah, here this first iron needed this flip-flop to go to the right and not fuse here. And then the second stick gets put over there, and then it attaches a chain of carbons in a slightly unusual way.
Well, it's the kind of way that is natural if you think about it. But again, the issue is that you have to think about it in the first place. So here's how you can do extrusion when you only have one motor, but you aren't start 4 cycles.
I mean, this would be easier with a loop going clockwise rather than counterclockwise. You could just attach and then shift it over by ones. But you need to get this first stick onto this drop, and that doesn't work coming from the left. So you need to come from the right and do this awkward thing with these scrap drops down here. Anyway, this gets re-grabbed in a different place, rotated, debonded. We have the straight edge here. Then bond again, that is a bent compass, and output both of them. And yeah, it takes almost 30,000 cycles and has 98 symbols, so it is not quite optimal. But that was not the point with making a single model solution. And I can also show the round 6 puzzle, which already started yesterday. This was mostly...
Do we have solutions already? Do we have solutions already?
Last time I checked, we didn't. I can check again. No, we still don't have any solutions to this. Yeah, this is called Elementary Methods of Quantum Wall crossing. There are these 2 quantum walls that you need to cross.
It's stylized like a paper name.
Okay, yeah. And you need to get hydrochloric acid across in some way. There are 2 fusion and 2 fission lasers and 4 bonders. Yeah.
So, side question 1, I have already announced in chat, but I think it doesn't hurt to say it again. How many outputs can you produce if you only get 1 fusion laser and everything else is unchanged? Bounds for this quantity can be sent to my or Yellow Panda's DMs.
So yeah, I already got one answer from someone, but no explanation behind that, so I don't really know what to do with that. I think mostly sent this to Pre. He came up with this idea. I haven't really thought about it at all. If you have any fun solutions that the bot doesn't accept, you can send them to me.
Yeah, so clearly your upper bound is probably going to be some sort of paper proof, and your lower bound is going to be, well, a solution file. But in case you produce less than 100 outputs before stalling or crashing, then the bot cannot validate your solution. So instead of sending it to the bot, you should send it to me directly or to Yellow Bunny. Doesn't matter.
Or you can also focus on optimizing your scoring solutions instead if you prefer that.
Say a few words about the metric, perhaps.
Oh yeah, metric, we have that as well. What did we decide on for the metric? Fuses and splits added together. So that is the number of commands, no matter how often you hit them, just these symbols right here.
Ties in that are broken by a rectangle size. So your solution, expressed in symbols, has an axis line bounding box. So we could calculate its area, and this area is the first order tiebreaker for this puzzle.
For example, this solution right here would have an area of 10 across by 8 high, so 80 squares. And yeah, this solution would only have an area of 10 squares. And then there's also more tiebreakers by cycles and symbols and all of those things, but you should mostly focus on minimizing your splits and fuses and then putting everything into a nice rectangle. Yeah, that's it about this level. We've seen all the solutions to round 5. I think that's everything. Goodbye to the stream watcher, actually recording watchers. Bye.